Check 1, 2. There we go. Now, wait a few seconds for it to catch up with us. Come on. You can do it.
I heard it barely. It's very dim.
If I went to some website right now with a video playing I didn't want to hear, it'd be all over the place. Are you guys hearing? Talk to me. Are you talking? No. All right. The video thing I didn't want to hear. Oh, there we go. That was just a loose cable on my part. Okay.
Somebody give us a Bitcoin. We just need one.
Be all over the place.
Just one would be good.
Are you guys hearing? Talk to me. Are you talking? No. All right. Okay. Let me. I didn't want to hear. Oh, there we go. That. All right. Now, Seth, say hello.
Hello, Seth.
Perfectly.
Greetings from Canton.
Now, Miles, say hello.
Hello.
Okay. Good. What a nightmare! What an unbelievable nightmare. Okay.
First world problems.
That's well said. Well said. The free service I subscribed to didn't perform up to my expectations. Wah!
Oh, man.
Okay, so we're recording.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Sure.
And
I'm recording.
Let's just do that.
I have a chat room live that I can
There we
see
go.
should anybody say anything.
This is nice. Oh, I feel like I'm Dave Ramsey with this thing. Pretty cool.
You're literally doing an unboxing on the show. Awesome.
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
Oh,
Okay, let's do this. We'll just do a quick warm-up section, jump straight into your FreeNAS Unraid, and hopefully be done by the end of the first quarter.
Gee, no news tonight?
Surprise!
we should do something on that Experian thing, because that is sort of timely.
Well, we did lots
But
of
it
news
won't
last
have-
week.
It won't have the punch in a couple of weeks, you know.
I was actually pretty pleased with myself, not to break my arm patting wow, that shirt is worn out. Look at that. Not to break myself break my arm patting myself on the back, but I worked the news into the discussion really well last week. If I could do that every week, we would need a separate news section.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
But yeah, let's do that since we're talking about protecting ourselves. We can talk about the Equifax thing because, yeah, that is that's timely. Let's just do that. Let's abandon the storage thing. Let's just talk about
let's do
that because it's
Epic
timely.
Fail.
Yeah.
Not if you're an Equifax executive.
Yeah.
You made bank.
Yeah, you'll be able to enjoy that behind the bars in a jail cell.
And what was it?
They just gave the well. I'll save that comment.
Well, yeah, and in tandem to it, wasn't it Wells Fargo who came back and said, "Oh, by the way, we said it was 1 million false accounts. Now it's 2 million. Oops."
I heard it was as much as 4.3.
Okay, let's start recording and have this discussion then. All right, 1, 2, 3. Make a marker. All local recording devices are activated.
Yep.
For quite some time.
Roger that. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geek Rant, episode 302. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Recorded September 10th, 2017, and brought to you barely by Element OP Productions. ElementOP.com. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the show that almost wasn't. I am Mark, your host, sometimes known as the Sultan of the Soapbox Cockerel, and joining me this week, barely, are your stalwart co-host, your friends and mine, Seth the Gooey Kid Anderson, and Miles the Aussie Junior Wakeham. Hello, gentlemen.
ElementOP.broke is how we're operating here recently. Come on, people, please save us.
And let me give you my accurate interpretation of Skype. That's Skype this week.
Yeah, so
Pretty much.
I came up here, about half hour before the show, as I always do, and my laptop says, "Oh, you need a new Skype update." Okay, fine, I'll do that later. No, really, you need a new Skype update. Great, I'll do that later. No, you don't understand. You need a new Skype update. Fine, I'll do the Skype update. Great, this won't take long. 10 minutes passes. This won't take long. 15 minutes passes. This really won't take long. 30 minutes passes. I think Microsoft and I disagree on what will take long. I eventually kill that, reboot the machine, do a new install. Everything comes back up. It really didn't take long this time. Only I can't talk to anybody. I can't call Seth. I can't talk to Miles. So, yeah. So now we're not using Skype. We're using the Hangouts audio, which is passable, and you, the listener, probably won't know the difference. But the upside there is we're starting an hour late and frustrated. So, meh. So we were going to talk about storage and backups and strategies for that sort of stuff. But now we're not. We're going to talk about crap going wrong, specifically at Equifax and Western Union. Wells Fargo, that's it. But before we do that, let's read an email from our friend the Erm. It says, hey, I recently listened to episode number 300 of the GeekRant, where you were talking about DTube.video. I checked it out a couple of weeks ago, and while IPFS is cool, DTube is lacking a lot of features. For instance, the ability to subscribe. I highly recommend taking a look at BitChute.com. BitChute has a lot more polish and uses WebTorrent. If you visit it with Chromium, you get stats. It's pretty cool. BitChute is missing a few key features like being able to embed video, and it'd be nice if the subscriptions showed an actual list of the most recent videos, but other than that, it's a functional site. And so Miles checked out BitChute and has this to say about it.
Okay, Miles' thoughts on BitChute. Yeah, it's actually pretty good. Technically, it's really nice. It's well polished. It's got some... it's very fast. Like you start playing a video, it just plays, and you can move through that thing anywhere you want. And I didn't see any lag. It was pretty fast, which is great. I don't know if it's got the viewing numbers yet. The numbers are pretty low. I guess it just people haven't caught on to it yet. But, you know, there were a few videos with more than 20,000 views on them. So they were a little bit older. But, yeah, it's a thing. It's got some, I'm giving you all the positives, right? It's got some good things on the commenting. They use that discuss, I don't know how you say it. It's kind of like a plugin you see on WordPress sites where you can comment, but you have to have logged in or authenticated who you were. And that seems to have cut down a lot of the YouTube trash commenting that you typically see, at least so far. The 14-year-olds haven't discovered this yet, but you know, that was there. So yeah, I would say technically it's pretty solid. It's pretty good. But here's the problem. It's still centralized in that BitChute.com is centralized. And that's a problem. You see, the whole reason why DTube.video is attractive is not because it's better than YouTube or the user experience is yet as good as, like, you can't subscribe as the Erm has correctly stated. That's not what the problems that it's really trying to address is. What it's really trying to address is the fact that everything is totally decentralized. So you're not, you know, like if you're a YouTube, here's the thing. Oh, here's the big problem with BitChute though. You can't monetize it. There's no current monetization plan at all. Now they do say they're going to do something about that, but they've got the cart before the horse. The whole reason why people want to leave YouTube is because they're not getting paid, because YouTube's demonetizing their videos. And I'm a real YouTube addict. Like I watch ridiculous amount of YouTube every week. And the reason why I can do that is because the videographers, the hosts, the video producers, spit out a lot of content, right? But, you know, if you talk to any of them, they'll tell you it might take them 6 hours to do video editing on a 30-minute video. Well, unless you're getting paid, I'm sorry, you'll do that once or twice and then you'll be done with it and you'll say, I got a life, I'm not doing this anymore. And that's the problem. So if there's no monetization on BitChute, you will not get the big players moving to it because they can't make any money. And at least DTube.video gives them the opportunity of using a blockchain, making Steam, etc., which is, I think, ultimately what is going to hold steady. So that's kind of where I'm at. I like the technology that the ERM has brought forward. I think it's really cool. It's mature. It looks good. And the only thing I was missing was I'd like to see something on my TV that I could, watch while I'm doing it. But otherwise, no, it's good. But if hosts can't make any money, it is going to die a natural death.
Well, maybe. It just won't be what YouTube is, because YouTube wasn't for profit for a very long time. Having said that, it didn't really explode until there was money to be made. So the two do sort of go hand in hand. We don't really need another YouTube.
Make money until it killed off all the competition. Then it could make money. They took the Microsoft crap approach to destroy the market competition and then monetize it. So.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. There's a history of destroyed video sites out there that have died because the cost of the bandwidth and the servers is immense. And unless you're monetizing it in some way, I can't see this, being able to scale. Now, I granted in this case, BitTorrent is coming to the rescue for content distribution, but man, there's a lot of ISPs which are shutting that thing down. And I'm not sure whether this is going to, I don't know. I like what I see technically, and so don't get me wrong. I would happily watch it. It wouldn't be a problem. But I think decentralization, which is really the key goal that the IPFS crowd are trying to do, is a lot more than just having a slick user interface. Granted, without a slick user interface, it ain't going to go anywhere. And the ERM is right. DTube.video is like alpha level. It's not anywhere near the maturity here. But I have a feeling that would be kind of like judging the quality of a car because of the quality of its hood ornament. I don't think that's fair. I have a feeling they're going to get their hood ornament under control.
I mean, and also, if you want to compare something to YouTube, say that YouTube is a 2017 sedan, it's polished and it's got all these features and all these bells and whistles. DTube is a 1907 Model T. It is just getting started. So it is going to lack so many features that if it gets the buy-in and to attract the developers, it can catch up really fast because everybody knows I want something that looks like that versus what do users want. But I want something that looks like that, but it's easier to monetize and it's, not proprietary technology. And then poof, DTube could catch up in a year and be everything YouTube is and more.
Well, the thing is, we don't really need or want another YouTube. We have another YouTube. We have a YouTube. We want an alternative to it. And so hopefully,
right,
these things will not be trying to become the thing that they're trying to replace, but will differentiate themselves in some way.
Yeah, I think it's actually not us, the consumers, that are wanting another YouTube. It's the hosts. They want another way that they can make money where they're not going to have the money stripped away from them by a benevolent dictator.
Yeah, and and like Facebook took all the cool features of MySpace and dumped all the crap. And so it made a product that was like MySpace but different. And so DTube can be like YouTube but different.
Right.
So,
and of course, using that analogy, Facebook continued to then create crap of its own. So,
right.
it's an ever evolving thing. It has to be.
Yep.
Speaking of evolving things, we here in Georgia have learned new methods of panic. We are now panicking about a storm that is 700 miles away. My children's school has been called off to tomorrow and Tuesday because of Hurricane Irma that has made landfall in southern Florida. And my office, and actually the governor has declared a state of emergency before a drop of rain has fallen in the state. And so certain protocols have gone into place, and businesses are shutting down because when there's a state of emergency, that's what they do. Now, I'm making light of it. By the time Irma gets here, it is still projected to be up to a Category 1 hurricane, possibly tropical storm. But we're talking straight line winds of 70 to 75 miles an hour with gusts higher than that. So it's going to be a significant event. But methinks perhaps we are a little apt to panic. I mean, my wife and daughter on the way home from they did a thing after school, and on the way home from that Friday evening, just happened to say, we're out of bread and milk. Let's stop at the Kroger and get some bread and milk. And what they found were empty shelves and panicked people. And then after that, they were like, well, it turns out we actually do need a tank of gas, so let's stop for gas. 15-minute line to get gas, and then what's the worst that could possibly? Let's say it comes in at a full-on Category 1 hurricane status. In Florida, Category 1 hurricanes aren't even an event, really. It's a lot of rain, it's a lot of wind. Stuff gets blown around. Maybe power's out in localized areas because trees fall on power lines. But we're not looking at, a Houston level event. I mean, the American continent hasn't seen a Houston level event since people have been keeping records. So I think we're just a little panicked, and we're all, we're hoarding water and all that sort of stuff. My concern is, we will probably lose power. Big trees, rain, trees fall on power lines. Probably gonna lose some power. I'm making sure that we have some alternative solutions there. We don't have a generator. Would have been nice to get a generator to keep the fridges running, but it's probably not going to be down for more than a day or two. So there's that fine line between prudence and overreaction. And I think that in the modern Western society, I'm not even going to blame the West. In American society, the pendulum swings all the way over to overreaction every time.
Well, you've got to compete with the 140 character news cycle, and then the fact that nobody prepares for anything. Hurricane Irma didn't cause a gas shortage in Texas. Stupid, retarded people on social media caused a gas shortage in Texas that spiked the prices that still have only came down about 10 or 15 cents. That's what caused the problem. Because nobody is like, hey, what would be smart is if I had a 5-gallon can of gas at the house. What would be smart? If I had a case of water and a week's worth of food. That's not stupid prepper junk. That's just being smart. The hurricane that came through 5 or 6 years ago, we got like some gust up to tropical storm strength. Mostly it was tropical depression and winds. I went to Walmart during the quote unquote height of the storm in Van Zandt County just because I was curious. And it looked like somebody had detonated a bomb in the store. The water was empty. The food was empty. It was like stuff was just lying on and I'm just looking around going, did the zombie apocalypse happen? Have we been raided? And it was just, people are stupid. And, it's that line from
Men in Black.
Yeah. A person is smart, but people are stupid, and social media subtracts 1,000 points of a person's intelligence for every one person that's on it. So, there's no hope. I really don't know how American culture can survive to 2018.
Well, let me give you the positive, if there is anything. And firstly, my heart goes out to anybody in Florida, Houston, who's suffering because of all of these natural events. Let's hope there's you can get through this thing and you don't have any permanent damage afterwards. I'll start from there. Now, let me give you the positive. We had a whole week of nonstop CNN and everybody else doing Hurricane Watch, and we didn't have to listen to Trump. That was the positive, right?
And the stories were almost all about good people doing good things.
Yeah. It was so refreshing.
Yeah, so, anti stupidity or anything like that on the news. So, and like I have Facebook friends who live in the Keys and they evacuated up into the Panhandle, and so I mean, I'm glad they got out because I would have hate to have been there when it came through. But when you're in Georgia, hundreds and hundreds of miles from the coast, I mean, people don't go crazy.
Yeah. From Key West, Florida to my address is roughly 800 miles. Figure some of that is, Google Maps, right? So some of that is curves and whatever. Let's take 100 miles out. Let's say they're off by 100 miles. That's 700 miles of continent that Irma has to go through to get here. Now, admittedly, this is a big dang storm. Hurricane categories are wind force. They don't, as far as I know, there's no measure of land mass that they cover. And this thing from tip to tip will cover Florida. Like, it will be leaving Florida and entering Florida at the same time. This thing is massive. So, yeah, it's going to be big. It's going to bring a lot of rain. But I've got people, well-meaning people who love me, suggesting that I fill a 50-gallon trash can full of clean water in case the substations go down and go out and videotape all of my possessions so that I can have to fill out insurance forms. I will have the video, and actually I did use the word tape. So that tells you this is not a young person who's giving me this advice. But yeah, if we come out of this a couple of days from now, if Wednesday morning I am up to my ankles in water on the first floor of my home, I will eat a nice roasted crow. But for now, I really think it's much ado about nothing. But having said all that, in a state of emergency, people, and my beloved Cowboys are playing football right now, and with an hour and a half of technical difficulties, I'm here doing a show. You know what that deserves? That deserves you going to patreon.com/elementop and pledging $1. It just does. Plain and simple. Now, moving on.
Yeah.
Let's talk about people who don't deserve what they got or deserve way more than they didn't get or whatever. So I'm going to first jump into, before we get to the other one, Wells Fargo last year said, hey, we had about 1 million fake accounts created. Our internal sales policies were such that we rewarded people for opening fake accounts. Fake accounts often using real people's names. So they'd go into the database and Bob Smith of 123 Main Street has a checking account. We're going to open a savings account in the name of Bob Smith of 123 Main Street. They did that to the tune of about 2 million times. And there was a big scandal and everybody got fired. Nope, not at all. Nobody got fired. So just this last week, Labor Day weekend, so, to slip it in there when nobody's paying attention, when all the news stories are about lake safety and don't be drunk on the lake, they come out and say, we found another 1.4 million accounts. Sorry about that. Oops. And then some reports have it as high as another 2.5. And they're just slipping that in there, and they're getting away with it. I don't understand how that happens. How do you commit felony 3 million times and have no repercussions of it?
Greed. That's it. It's as simple as that. I mean,
No.
you can all
Mark.
honesty and ethics go out the door when it comes to greed, and they use every single form of excuse as to why this is acceptable behavior.
Yeah, and I was going to say there are consequences. Their fraud, cover-up, slush fund, it took a hit. So, there were consequences. They aren't going to uncover anything else until next year. There's real-life consequences to this.
No.
Got to pretend to be good.
It won't be next year. It'll be Thanksgiving, like Black Friday. They'll come out and say, we found another 2 million.
I didn't say it wouldn't happen this year. I said they wouldn't report it till next year.
Look, they're no different to like HSBC Bank that were funding terrorists and drug cartel money and got a little slap on the wrist of some $500 million fine or something for doing that. But at the end of the day, why can people come to the realization that this is acceptable behavior? I mean, clearly it's not. The little guy would be in jail over this sort of thing, and the big guys think, well, if we get away with it, we can find a way to spin it, and it's acceptable behavior. Well, don't bank with these people. That's the way you deal with it. You just don't give them your business.
I mean, but I don't know. These guys are obviously trustworthy because they tell us how evil Bitcoin is.
Well, and you still see people opening bank accounts and taking out mortgages with Wells Fargo, doing business as usual, because it takes a couple of hours of frustration to move your bank accounts. And so you would just continue to do business with criminals because it's just easier.
But what choice do you have? Name me one of those banks that isn't doing crap like this.
Well, you could go to a local credit union.
Credit union.
Exactly. Where you are the owner and you have some authority.
Right.
And I have a local
credit union.
I have a local credit union in my building where I work. I walk past it every day when I get on the elevator. Do I have an account there? No. My account is with Bank of America because it's too difficult to change accounts.
See, every one of my accounts are with credit unions. I don't have an account with a regular retail bank because they're just ridiculous in terms of fees and costs, and you don't get any service. Well, here's the weird thing. I did have an account with Bank of America, and it was constantly frustrating and very expensive. And what really annoyed me was every time I walked into a branch, there was this person full-time employed at the front, at the doorway or behind a little kind of counter thing, who would welcome me into the branch. They couldn't do anything. They had no skills to actually transact or be a teller, but they were a greeter.
It's the Walmart greeter.
It was like a Walmart greeter, but at Bank of America. And I felt, if that's where my money is going, to pay a greeter, I'm out of here. And that was the straw that broke my camel's back.
Well, in reality, most of the banks I've been to, that person's actually the manager, so they're greeting you. But
no, these were like interns from the local university.
Nice. All right, but Mark Twain is famously quoted as saying, "Put all your eggs in one basket and then watch that basket." So we have a handful of large corporate businesses like this, and people trust them because of their size. They're too big to fail, right? And these people would never do us wrong. Bank of America would never do anything corrupt. Wells Fargo would never open bogus accounts. Equifax would never release all of your Social Security and account number informations to the world to see, right? That would never happen.
Yeah, it was what I found that was extremely telling is, they say that there was a certain day they were notified of the hack, but the day before, 3 of their top executives sold between like 5 and 13% of their Equifax stake and made between just under $1 million to like about just under $250,000. But yet they say, trust us, we're honest. We didn't know about the hack when we sold the shares. And of course, the shares tumbled like 13% upon the news. And I hate Bloomberg because I forgot to mute the tab.
Yeah.
They have crap on their website. Great financial advice, crappy website. Thank you, Bloomberg. But yeah, so Equifax, they were apparently they didn't just say, "Hey, does anybody want our data?" They got hacked and they found out about it and they notified people. But like I say, they let the executives sell stuff first. So way to go, Equifax. And here's the thing I hate. Okay, we're American citizens, so the government has our data. That's just the thing of being an American citizen. And if the government gets hacked, well, what can you do about that? I don't do business with Equifax. I don't have really any control over the fact that they have my data. And the only service they provide is to bleat people who are out to get loans and stuff. And yes, I know that's being facetious, but not by much. It's one of these things.
It's accurate.
Yes. That businesses build up because, hey, I'm a CEO and you're a CEO. We need to get some more high-level CEOs in this club. What can we do? We can start a credit monitoring service. Well, first, we have to create another company that comes up with the credit score, and then we'll have these other companies that don't really use that credit score. They use their own credit score, but they reference that credit score so they can be CEOs too. And then all of this does is take money out of people's pockets and line it to executives who are busy patting each other on. I found out that's what executives do. They visit other executives and pat them on the back. They don't really do much in the way of actual work, but there's a lot of back patting going on.
I think their hands are actually a little lower when they're standing in that circle. Just saying.
You think so? Maybe not in the back.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But so anyway, Equifax got hacked. companies get hacked. I understand it, but don't sell 13% of your stake and make $1 million the day before the hack is released. And the thing is, these weren't part of their 10b5-1 scheduled trading plan. So, when the executives like that sell stock, they do this plan, to say, hey, this isn't insider trading. I'm just going to sell some stock and I'm going to sell it on this day. And there's all these filings, but this wasn't a part of that. This was just a quick million that the CFO wanted to make. And that doesn't have anything to do with this hack.
The thing that bothers me most about this, yes, that's a terrible thing. But if you read on Equifax's own website, where they come out and announce it, it says September 7th, 2017, they release a newswire. Today announced that a cybersecurity incident potentially impacting approximately 143 million U.S. customers. Criminals exploited a website. The information included names, social security numbers, birth dates, addresses, and in some instances, driver's license. Okay, this was on September 7th. You know when they found this? July 29th. They went 5 weeks before they mentioned it. So 5 weeks of cover-ups and CYA actions. 5 weeks of people having my social security number, driver's license, address, and names and date of birth. What can you do with that information? Oh, I don't know. Anything? Anything you want to do with that information? Those are all the proof of identity questions anywhere you're asked, anywhere in the world. For 5 weeks, that information's been on the market, and they haven't said a thing.
Let's give some context to this, because there's probably people listening to the show who may not be in the US and probably don't realize the importance of what they do. So just to give a little context, there's this thing in the United States called a FICO score. And a FICO score is a lazy way that a bank or a credit provider can make a determination about your credit worthiness. And it's a number that sits somewhere between 500 and 800 and something. And the higher, the better. So in order to calculate that number, they take all of this input data that comes from things like your credit bureaus, any public records from courts that might be on file, credit and banking reporting services that report in, and they do this mathematical tabulation and work out whether you're a good or a bad risk to somebody to loan you money. Well, in a world where we live on credit, I mean, we do. You can't get a mortgage without credit. You can't rent a place without a credit score or a rental application screening. And all these things they tell the rest of the world who you are from a trustworthiness standpoint. Well, there are 3 bureaus that create this data. There's Experian, there's Equifax, and there's TransUnion. And different banks and credit providers subscribe to their services to buy access to their data, to their report, to ultimately get this magic FICO number, which says when I want to go and apply to get a loan for a car or something, what my credit worthiness is.
And let me interject here. It's a reciprocal thing. If you buy the access, you also must give them information. So
that's right.
If your landlord, if you're a renter, probably submits data to these 3 organizations so that they can then get the data when they're trying to decide whether or not you're a good credit risk.
Yeah, and if you go to jail, that gets submitted. If you default on you get a judgment in a court, it's submitted. If you have student loans, they're submitted. If you have health bills, they're submitted. Everything's submitted that comes up with this magic number that tells the world whether you're a good or a bad person. There's no context. It's just math and banking, and this is how the banks work. And people in banking are lazy. They look at a FICO score and they go, computer says no. And then that's the end of your loan. They don't look at you as a human. We've forgotten about how to do that since about the 80s. So this is important. And the thing is that if we've succumbed and given up our right to be judged as a human being on our potential and what we've achieved and what doesn't fit these scores, then the importance of these credit bureaus to do the right thing and to be truthful and to be honest on our behalf is critical to our ability to live in the Western world. because if they've got bad data on you, you don't get that rent, you don't get that car, you don't get that mortgage, and that means you probably don't get that job because they're also looking at your credit score as well. So this is something that is a little more important than just Home Depot losing a bunch of Visa card numbers. This is life and death for a lot of people. So you would think that with this level of importance sitting over the top of any one of these three bureaus, that they would actually have your back, wouldn't you? And of course, they would love to sell that to you because they're selling you credit reporting services and scanning to see if you got somebody stole your data and there's identity theft on you. And oh, by the way, you pay them for that, and that they will scan and make sure no bad guy out there's got your data. Meanwhile, they gave all your data to the bad guys. So I'm at the gym this afternoon. I'm on the treadmill watching the TV screens that are up there. And as I'm going through doing my regular workout, what do I see advertised on TV this afternoon? Equifax credit scanning services, and they're trying to sell this stuff after this hack, after this absolute disaster. They have the audacity to get up and still try and sell you scanning of data they just lost. So that at some point, we the people have to realize we're not that dumb. We can't just sit there and take this anymore. It's ridiculous. Oh, I want to add one thing to this. Shortly after this went public, Equifax put a website up where you could register to see whether your data had been leaked. And apparently that website was a WordPress website, and within about half an hour, some hackers hacked it and openly published the name and password of the administrator to the WordPress site these people put up. And this is who we're putting in trust of our basic human rights to financial security in the Western world. I rest my case.
And so what I was talking about is you can take somebody's social security number, a number given at birth by the government that is never to be used for personal identification. But you can take somebody's social security number, their address, their driver's license. You can take all that, and you can open any account in the world. You can commit fraud all over the place. And Equifax says, well, we're going to offer fraud protection through our own company. They've set up a shell company to offer protection. Why would I trust them? If anything, they should offer protection through one of the things offered by one of the other companies, TransUnion, or the other one whose name I can't remember right now. Experian, that's it. They're not going to, and honestly, I wouldn't trust them if they did either. But all this means is that they will run a couple of extra scans for your names in a database. I can't imagine this is going to be anything real in terms of protection. And if it was, why would I trust them? Now, I get it. Hacks happen all the time. It's a thing. If you've got something valuable, Fort Knox is going to be broken into at some point. If you've got something valuable, bad guys with time and intelligence are going to get after your information. And Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, these credit reporting agencies, have become warehouses, storehouses, Fort Knox of information. They're going to be attacked. I'm not even mad at them for getting attacked. I'm mad at them for waiting 5 weeks to tell us about it. I'm mad at them for intentionally selling their stocks before they released the information so that it didn't take such a hit. And I'm mad at them for only offering to protect us by using their own services. I mean, what kind of sacrifice is that? What kind of repayment is that for the potential loss? It's none. So this is just sleaze on top of sleaze on top of sleaze, and these people are going to come out completely clean because they control the data.
And yeah, I can't boycott them.
It's not enough. Exactly.
I mean, if Google got hacked, I can say I'm not using another Google product, and I'm going to go to Bing and look up the highest Google AdWords users and not use their stuff either. I mean, I wouldn't do that because I'm lazy, and I like watching stuff on YouTube, but that would be an option. What's my option with Experian? Cash only? I mean, that's Bitcoin? Your option. Cash only business.
But not only that, not only could, even if you did spend cash, all the things you spent cash on are going to be reporting that. You cannot get out of this system.
That's true. I mean, if I do cash and, they ask me what my name is and I tell them a name and they say, could I get your email address? And I say no. Or they say, do you have an email address? And I say yes. And they say, what is it? And I say, you'll never find out. I mean, it's hard to track that back to a person, but then you don't have a credit score and you go say, I would like to buy a house, please. Here's a 30% down payment. Or, I want to pay 90% down. They'll say, I'm sorry, you don't have a credit score. I don't know how to give you a loan.
Well,
and so, yeah,
your thing doesn't even work there, Seth, because the only way to be completely off the grid is to not have electricity and not have a cell phone. All of these people report to the system. You can't.
Well, that's true.
You could only buy burner phones for the rest of your life with cash, and you could have phone service that way. The only way you're going to get electricity is if you live in somebody else's house, you're not going to get water. Because all the water supply places, even if you paid cash, they're going to know who you are and they're going to record your payments. There's just no way. Yeah, you can dig a well, right, and you can do solar and wind power. You have to literally be off the grid. You have to be, the Unabomber here. That's the only way to not have your data in these guys' systems. And then you got to wait 15 years for them to purge the data that you already have. Then you can be anonymous. You could be an anonymous 60-year-old living on a van down by the river.
I want to touch on a whole bunch of questions that nobody seems to want to ask right now. Was this done by some hacker for the lols? Or was this done by some state-sponsored group who want to be able to get to the core of the United States mentality of safety? And if so, what's the end result of this? Are we a weaker society because of this happened? And what do you think that the end result of that? Because I mean, look, I'll say it. This is freaking 1984. This is George Orwell, Big Brother, right there. And now you see the downside of it being poorly managed. I honestly believe that Equifax were not that stupid to leave the door unlocked for some 14-year-old kid to come in and grab all this data for the lols and brag to his buddies at school. No, that didn't happen. This was done by an organized attack for a specific purpose, both financial, but I would say even more so to undermine the security of the people of the United States. What do you think of that?
I don't think it's that grand.
I'll see you, and I will up you a better conspiracy theory. It was done by a cabal of the leading government and financial and business sectors in the United States to force through more totalitarian regulations to restrict your freedom even further.
Ooh,
so there, I see your conspiracy and raise you.
and they're putting mind control chemicals in the vaccines, right?
Right. I mean, but yeah, here's the thing. Prove me wrong. Where's the data that proves me wrong?
I think you got to be onto something, because at the end of the day, money is more powerful than government, because these banks are too big to fail because they own the government. We're $20-something trillion in debt to these bastards, and they own us. So when anything that happens on their watch goes down, they get a pass. I mean, you know, these three guys who sold short on their stocks before this thing got public, you think they're going to get jail time for that?
Yeah.
They should, but they're probably not.
Yeah,
but I guarantee one thing. If you were working for, I don't know, American Express or some company as just a lowly employee, and you discovered something,
I gotta ask you,
and you
how
decided
is the
to
market
buy
receiving?
some
sorry, I went back to the
Bloomberg
Bloomberg site. Sorry.
That's all right. If you decided to buy something and sell it short, you'd be going to jail. But if you're a VP of some big honking bank, you get a pass. How is that?
Yeah,
right?
The reason Martha Stewart went to jail, she wasn't connected enough.
Right. Yeah. So
sorry, Mark.
There's something going on here which is way bigger than Experian just got hacked, but it's more important that what happens afterwards. So, I mean, look, is this going to affect anybody in the United States' ability to go and get a loan? Let's say 6 months from now, everybody's credit cards got hacked. People are opening credit cards in your name, and we've all got identity theft problems, and we're all shutting down accounts and reopening new accounts. And then I know this as a landlord, right? We get rental applications all the time for tenants. And one of the things that comes on the reports that we get is if somebody has submitted to the credit reporting agencies that they think that they're a victim of identity fraud, that information gets stamped on their report. We see that. When we see that, we know the report is meaningless and we can't trust it. Now, if I'm in a position where I have to make a decision on somebody's ability to rent property from me, and I don't have any financial history to go by, it's a very, very hard decision to make. I have to go and actually do my job of talking to the people and meeting them and work out where they live and how they live and look at their Facebook pages and do all of the things that would normally be done. I have to actually do that. I'm okay with that. But is your local bank okay with that? Is your car rental place you want to rent the car from okay with that? Are the T-Mobile store going to be okay when you sign up for an account and they see that same data? No, they're going to say, sorry, there's something on here we don't trust and you have to go somewhere else.
Well, in that case, I mean, I don't disagree with your logic there, but if that is truth, then my hope is that the breach would be bigger. You know, the only thing that's going to work is if they bring the whole system down. But like you said, we've over the last 30 years, we have created an entire system that depends on this magical score. That is black box magic that nobody knows anything about. And you're right. You can't get a loan. You can't. Oh my gosh, Bloomberg. I muted one video. It stopped playing. It started playing another one. Unmuted. I'm just going to close that tab.
Mute the tab. Yep.
Oh, man.
Well, now I'm just mad at Bloomberg for being morons.
Don't shoot the messenger.
I can if they deliver the message with daggers. Anyway, I've completely lost my train of thought. No idea what I was saying. But I'm going to...
it would be bigger.
I have to be the voice of reason among the Black Helicopter tribe here and say that this was not a grand plan to destabilize the country. This was some guys, breaking into the bank because that's where the money is. And they want to do bad things with the information they can get there. They could blackmail people with it. They don't actually have to open false accounts and do that sort of stuff. There's lots of things you can do with that kind of information, because with that kind of information, it's pretty easy to find out who the whales are. They're not going to attack me. I don't have enough money. I'm pretty much invincible in this scenario because I don't have any money. They can't do anything. They could open some accounts, that sort of thing. But the real danger is that they're going to go after the whales, these Equifax guys. So I think it was somewhere between doing it for the lulz and the Black Helicopter troop. It's somewhere in between there. It was definitely some determined and intelligent hackers who wanted the information and found the information. The problem is there should not be storehouses of this information. End of sentence.
Right. Well, it's going to be harder for anybody to get credit going forward because now, because of this incident and the how widespread it was, any credit provider or any car rental company, phone company, anybody you're committing to a longer term relationship than an individual transaction, those organizations are going to not trust the data they have on you, and they're going to be on guard. They're not going to be willing to give anything until you jump through 4 hoops rather than 3. And, you better have a passport with your photo on it. You better have driver's license with your photo on it. And maybe the best way to guarantee to them that you are who you say you are is maybe they need some DNA. Maybe they need your fingerprint. Maybe they need an iris scan.
Just to put this in context, Miles keeps talking about the size of this. 143 million customers in the U.S. At last census, the population of the U.S. was 323 million. That's everybody who has a pulse. All right? So of those 323 million, how many of them are minors under age 18 that don't have credit information? I could make a case for half of them pretty convincingly. In my home, it's 3/5 of them. So essentially, this is every American over the age of 18. That's how big this is. This is everyone.
Worst case scenario, it's half the country. Worst case scenario. I'm sorry.
Best
case scenario.
Yeah.
It's half the country.
Yeah.
So the system is going to have to change. And maybe if there was a cabal working together, maybe that's what they were trying to do, to bring down the system as it is. Because you're right, Miles, it can't continue in the way that it is. And I personally don't think that's a bad thing at all.
No, I mean, look, maybe I don't want to keep going on about Bitcoin, but maybe that is the savior here. Some immutable blockchain of evidence that cannot be faked, that cannot be disputed because it's locked in by decentralization and math. And we break through, we come out of this with a much stronger appreciation for not putting all of our eggs in one basket or one of three baskets. And maybe that is something that will be a long-term benefit to everybody, because I honestly think we can trust that. I just don't think we can trust these guys. They're dinosaurs. It's ridiculous. Like if I go to a restaurant and I pay for my meal and I put my credit card in the little credit card, wallet that comes out with the bill, and they take that thing away, they've taken away my entire bank account. They've got everything they need to use to go and buy a flat screen TV at Best Buy and then sell it on Craigslist, pocket the money and shove off to the Bahamas. And I'm giving it to them. It's a stupid system. And so many of our banking infrastructure is based on 1950s technology, 1960s technology that is just fundamentally flawed in the day of the internet. It doesn't work anymore. And this is just one example of one of those prehistoric dinosaurs that in this particular case decided to poop out all your data all over the land. So we have to change. We have to get away from centralization, and we have to put the power back in the hands of the individual in something we can all trust.
See, the problem with switching to Bitcoin is until that switch is made, there's got to be an on-ramp, off-ramp of, Bitcoin to fiat. And so what happens is with this data, they can then trace the blocks and then be able to follow that money around forever. So
I don't mind them. Yeah, I don't mind them following the money. What I'm more curious is that maybe a better way of handling credit reports and this sort of fiscal data will be done with maybe smart contracts or with some sort of a methodology that is secure and cryptographically hidden away and in a place where it cannot be tampered with and changed. And I'm thinking like a service like Ethereum would be an ideal solution to something like this.
I don't know. I have too much distrust for that system to work, because I don't know, somewhere your information that you own those blocks on the blockchain, even if you have a hardware key, what happens when that key fails? Well, you can recover it by having like a security token and this and that, which means your data is still stored on somebody's system. So you've just harder to recover, but it's still there. You're still not out from under this system.
I think it's going to come down to a question of how we all trust the institution of data. And it's not just, yes, this data is being used for banking purpose, but this is a big brother database on all of us. And we've given the keys to some bad guy out there to go and wreak havoc with it. And at the end of the day, we don't know what the end result's going to be. People don't trust this sort of thing anymore. And I don't know what you do. I think we're way too entrenched in it, though. I don't think you can back out of this.
Trust is always the problem. Seth doesn't trust the blockchain. Miles doesn't trust guys in suits, and they're both right.
It's not that I don't trust the blockchain, but you've still got to be able to prove who you are to the blockchain. You know, the answer isn't to have a site like Coinbase and they hold my keys, because then somebody can hack into Coinbase and get my stuff. You know, so are we all going to walk around with our little hardware wallets? Well, what happens if somebody steals my wallet and puts a gun to my head and says,
same thing that happens if they steal your cash.
Yeah. So, but then how do I go and get that stuff back?
The same thing you do if you get your cash. You don't. It's gone. And that's a method that worked for centuries. Whatever thing we said was valuable, whether it was gold or whether it was a fiat currency, cash, once it was gone, it was gone. And you took terms to protect. You carried a sidearm, and that was your protection. We have lost the personal responsibility because we've trusted the guys in the suits to take care of us. If somebody uses my credit card for fraudulent purposes, I'm not liable for that. If we go back to a cash-like model, whether it be an electronic model or we're actually carrying around chunks of shiny rocks with us, if we go back to that model, we put the responsibility on the person. This is yours. Protect it. If you don't, it is gone. Gone forever, gone for good, gone immutably, gone. And that has worked for millennia. Only recently have we decided somebody else needs to be responsible to protect my stuff.
Well said. Pearls of wisdom, people. What he just said, it should be written in stone somewhere. Take responsibility for your stuff.
All right.
I mean, it's not the government's responsibility?
No, it's not the government's responsibility to give you money after you stop working either, believe it or not.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point, actually. Yeah, that's. This is sort of a segue from here to something that's aligned with this. But I saw some very interesting, disturbing video today from Elon Musk on his position regarding artificial intelligence. And it is interrelated here, because he did this very interesting interview, and I think it was pretty recent. It might have been the last couple of weeks, in which he basically sees the acceleration of artificial intelligence to the point where it's like summoning a demon and then thinking that everything will just be okay. And I think that what he's seeing, because, you know, like Tesla, they do all of that autonomous driving stuff, and they're big on that sort of thing. He honestly, when I watched this video, this guy was like scared. He was like really frightened about what the world is becoming, because we humans aren't taking responsibility for anything anymore. And we're just giving it away to a robot or to a computer or to a banker or to a credit bureau. And it's curious, you know, if I would suggest to anybody who wants to keep on top of where AI is going, and how this might affect you in 1, 2, 3, or 5 years, to take a watch of this thing, because it was very interesting.
So if I hear you saying the summary of his article is Prelude to the Matrix?
Worse. He's basically saying that the rate of artificial intelligence growth, in terms of the speed in which it can make a decision and it can interpret the environment around it, and it can use all of the factors of movement and facial recognition and things like that, and predictive planning on where somebody's going to drive, or when they're going to walk out in front of you, or they've got their head down, or even Facebook, and you know they're going to walk into a pole. All those sort of things that he has computers that can predict it. Apparently, some of the things that I heard were things like the speed of electronic data communication is 1,000 times faster than the speed that our brain can transfer data within itself. And as a result, the computers will very quickly outweigh our ability to think. They'll outthink us 10 times before we even get to the point of thinking. And what I think is that's going to cause an issue culturally, because we will have a problem with obviously jobs. That's going to be the first one. But we're also going to be in a situation where if we're lulled into a sense of security over allowing the computers to do our decision making, and that, you know, we trust the computers to take care of everything, it appears that on a very, very fast path right now, that could become a massive problem for us. And we're seeing just a small part of it right now.
Here's how we solve the problem. What we do is we make the computer, every computer AI out there has to take a 769 question test and fill it out with a Scantron and mail it to the Department of Education for hand grading, and then wait on the results before they do anything. And I think we can come up easily 7 or 8 different tests we give them at different parts of the year to make sure they're learning and mastering the subjects they're supposed to. And that will fix this problem. Nip it right in the bud.
Ray Kurzweil, in an interview I listened to a while back, was asked the question, does God exist? And his answer was not yet, but we're working on it. And that falls in line with what Elon Musk says. At some point, we're going to create machines that so far outstrip us, they will be gods.
Yeah, they will. And what his concern appeared to be was whether they're I mean, if you think in terms of, like, I was driving back from a restaurant this week. My wife and I went out for lunch. We come out of the parking lot of this restaurant and turn onto the street, and 2 self-driving Uber cars were driving right next to us with the spinning thing on the roof, you know, that senses all the data. 2 of them, one behind the other, perfectly positioned, perfectly driving. Somebody sitting in there with no hands on the wheel, just chatting to the people in the back, you know, as they got their Uber drive. It freaks me out. But that is it's not because the car's driving itself. I mean, that's one thing. It's because of all of the AI which is in there scanning its exterior and knowing where everything is in regards to the car and predictively determining what that thing will do, whether somebody's going to run a red light or cut in front of them or something like that. And these computers are really good. They're better than we are. So if we've got that sort of exterior, you know, it all started with the Internet of Things, where we started to get the digital world embracing the physical world. Well, now the digital world is predicting the physical world, and it's positioning where it wants to be in regards to where it thinks the physical world's going to be before the physical world's even thought about being there. And it's just continuing from that point on. And I praise the smart new generation of geniuses that are coming up with this AI. I mean, they're absolutely amazing at what they've been able to do, but I don't think they see the legacy that's going to be coming on from what they're doing. And at the end of the day, we won't be allowed to drive a car. We won't be allowed to get a loan. It will be dictated to us predictively, because the computer will look at our past behavior and determine our future behavior, and that will become what it thinks the world will be. And it's already decided who you're going to be, how old you're going to live to, what sort of house you're going to live in, what sort of car you're going to drive, and how many kids you're going to have.
Oh, so China or the Soviet Union. Got it.
Yeah. But without the people making the decision, all done by machine. Because it's cheaper to make machines do it, right?
Yeah. Sounds like The Giver, right? Wasn't that teenage book where everybody's was told? Anyway, never mind. It's a dystopian future predicted by many. I am more optimistic. I don't think we're dumb enough to make machines that don't have off switches. I mean, we've all seen enough sci-fi to make sure there's an off switch, but we'll see.
Mark, you've looked at your Facebook in the last decade, haven't you?
You know, we were also dumb enough to trust the suits at Equifax, to be honest. So maybe my faith in humanity is woefully mishandled.
If we need an off switch, it's for those suits at Equifax.
Well, careful. That's dangerous talk right there.
See, here's the thing. AI knew we were going to be talking about this tonight. That's
tried to prevent us.
Work.
But we prevailed over the machines. At one point, I was like, you know, we can just get on the phone and talk to each other. That's a thing that can happen. Step back into the 1980s.
Yeah. Wow. What a world, huh? I mean, I couldn't have predicted this 15 years ago. I couldn't have predicted this 5 years ago. I mean, I knew Equifax were there and I knew they could probably get hacked. I mean, that's just expected behavior. But a society that is completely run by machines. And this is one little instance of where it went wrong. And we know that, as I think Seth, you had said before, that this will be an opportunity for them to lock us down even further. Yeah, I don't. It doesn't look all that positive future-wise for me. I mean, I'm not saying that it's all doom and gloom, but we've got to be super careful, geeks.
You know, there was a science fiction show, kind of like modern day thing, where there was like this kind of like this e-impulse that wrecked all technology, and so people were like, you know, only cash, and because nobody carried cash, nobody could buy stuff. And then as the movie went on, you realize that it wasn't like the Chinese that had done it to Americans. It was the government did it to the population, because, you know, the population was too deep in debt and too stupid, basically. And it was, you know, kind of a dystopian modern day science fiction thing. And man, you know, I really wasn't depressed about life until I got on this podcast tonight. Man, y'all, normally I'm the one bringing it down, but y'all are killing me.
All right, so let's get out of this tailspin and talk about the best gaming system ever created, hands down. Seth, what happened this week in history?
Yes, Mark. On September the 9th, 1998, the Sega Dreamcast debuts in North America. It had previously launched in Japan, but this was the North American debut. And among the awesome features, first gaming console with a modem to allow seamless online gameplay. Yes, it was a modem. And, you know, but it was the first one. It had to start somewhere. And a feature that I think has been neglected to their peril is some of the enhancements for like the controller. You could call your play on the controller and the other guy couldn't see and try to guess. So lots of neat things. The Dreamcast was a revolutionary machine. The problem was PlayStation dominated the gaming market, and all they said was, hey, we're going to come out with a PS2 sometime next year. And everybody went, oh crap, I'm not going to buy a Dreamcast. And so unfortunately, and this was Sega's last entry into the console hardware market. But man, if this is your last entry, it's a pretty great way to go. Sega Dreamcast debuted this week in 1998. And now back to you, Mark.
The Dreamcast of 1998 had better specs than the Generation 1 Xbox that was released some 6 years later. It was phenomenal. I was an early adopter on that one. I saved up my pennies. I went out and bought the console and several memory modules and 4 wireless controllers with the bump thing so it could vibrate in your hands. And I spent probably $600 and a couple of games altogether. And within 6 months, I walked into a pawn shop and saw a stack of them at the pawn shop for $5 each. That's how quickly the thing fell apart.
They're pretty collectible these days, aren't they?
I don't know, but I mean, there was a time in like 1999 where you could pick up a dozen of them for $100. It was crazy. It just fell apart. They stopped making games, and it's not that the console wasn't good. They just stopped making games. All the game manufacturers said, well, we'll just make for Sony, and we hear Microsoft is making something, and so we'll just keep doing that. And so we had this amazing system with 5 games on it, and that was it. It included a web browser, a specially skinned version of Netscape. That was thinking ahead, because you've never really browsed the web until you've done it with a controller in your hand going click, 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 A, click, 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 C, click, 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 I.
Couldn't you either use a USB keyboard, or wasn't there a special keyboard you could buy?
I don't know. I never saw it if there was.
I don't think they even invented USB back in those days.
No, it wasn't USB, but there might have been a keyboard. Yeah. They were using Bluetooth back before anybody did. Yeah. Anyway, crazy good stuff. And then, Seth, I refuse to click on this link that you're going to do next. So I'm just going to introduce the segment, mute my headphones, and then you talk about it and just give me a little wave when you're done. So, Seth, what do you have to lower other people's productivity? Not mine, because I refuse to click on it.
I gave the Element Opiates, the alchemy game, browser-based game. You start out with a few bare minerals and you combine them to make stuff, and then you combine them to make stuff, and then you make other stuff. And can you make everything in the game? And so it was such a hit. LittleAlchemy2.com is out now. So just go to littlealchemy2.com. You click play, and it remembers where you were. So if you come back later on the same browser, it'll be there. I only remember the starting alchemists or things, but among such things, I have beach, I have fire, and I have a black hole. So top that. Anyway, littlealchemy2.com for all of your time wasting needs, and tell them Seth sent you.
Oh, okay. I see that Seth is done. I'm sure he said something interesting, and I'm just going to say, if you'd like to let us know what you think about the coming apocalypse and how we're all doomed, you can go to elementop.com, click the Contact Us button, and fill that form out. You can send an email to geekrant@elementop.com, or if you really want to be super cool, you can go to patreon.com/elementop, leave at least $1 pledge, and leave a comment with that. And that will not only will you get top priority in my response, but you'll also be super cool. We all want to be super cool. We're geeks. We live to be super cool. This is the Cool Kids table, and we're inviting you to sit at it at the cafeteria. It only costs you $1.
Deal.
All right, that's it. Thanks for sticking with me, guys, through the horror that was prepping for this show. We made it through. Hopefully you, the listener, won't know the difference. Bloomberg, I hate you, and we'll see you next week, and go Cowboys. Remember to pay for what you like. All right, let me stop the YouTube stream. Bye, YouTubers.
Wow, we got through that.